Good morning. It is a early Wednesday morning in early November, November 6th, and I am in Fort Valley, which is the valley that splits the two main ridges of Massanutten Mountain in Virginia. So I'm kind of down in the middle of the north side of Massanutten Mountain, and I'm going to go up to Signal Knob. I'm doing a day hike for a Recon trip for what is to be an overnight backpacking trip with the scouts here in a couple of weeks. So I'm out here making sure that the logistics for a larger group, which is what I think I'm going to get, are suitable, and that I'm not leading boys on a death march. So I'm going to do the loop myself today, and we'll check it out and hopefully be back here with a crew learning here in a week and a half. So we'll see how it goes. It's a beautiful day for me. Hope we have equivalent weather when we do it for real. See how it is. I keep hearing what I think is a fairly large animal over there, but I don't see it. So the trail starts off by kind of turning southwest a little bit and following this little creek valley up. We had a pretty significant windstorm in the area, I don't know, about a week ago around Halloween, and knocked some of these trees down. I think I'm switchbacking across the creek here, and this is the only thing I got to go over, but you can see more fallen trees up there, like the wind just funneled down this valley. Anyway, fairly recent downfall. Blowdowns. We will navigate and continue. Well, this is cool. It's too far away to see on a GoPro, I know, but there's a bear right down there. First one I've seen in a while. Not cold enough yet for them to have started hibernating, that's for sure. Unexpected surprise this morning. Nice. So I should have mentioned, this is the Massanutten Trail. It's blazed orange like a lowercase I, a little dot over a standard bar. And that's pretty much a loop around the entire Massanutten complex. I'm not sure how long it is entirely. But up this way it intersects a couple of times with the Tuscarora Trail, which was built as a detour for the Appalachian. I'm not sure how long ago, but it cuts west of the main Appalachian Ridge up through Appalachian Trail route. I mean, through Shenandoah National Park and north of there and up into Pennsylvania a little bit, and runs through the Alleghenies instead of the main Blue Ridge. So the proposed campsite for this trip is right where the Massanutten and Tuscarora meet, and then you can make a loop back to where I started via the Tuscarora Trail. The climb has been steady ever since I left the car, but it's gradual. As you can see, this is pretty typical. A couple of rocky spots here and there, and I'm on the West Ridge, or climbing up the West Ridge. You can see the East Ridge right over there. Kind of gives me a good benchmark on how high I am. There's a little gap. So, sun's coming up over there that way, so it's a little washed out, but pretty colors. So anyway, that gives me a benchmark of how high I am. This ridge will climb up a little bit higher, but not much, as we go through the bowl of the north end of this mountain. Alright, about 1 3/4 miles in. You may not be able to see, because again the sun's coming up over there and everything's kind of silhouetted, but there's an impressive cliff across there on the East Ridge that is Buzzard Rocks, There's a nice trail over there if you ever feel inclined. And then that far ridge in the distance is actually the north end of Shenandoah National Park, if that helps orient. So this is the first of a couple of hard switchbacks on this trail. I've been kind of slabbing up the side of this on the going north, and from here it turns around and goes back south a while and continues to climb. So in general, this section that's headed back south has been a lot more rocky. Some of it has been old slide areas like this, but just in general, the tread is a lot, requires a lot more attention to where you're putting your feet. It's not too bad though. It's a narrow gap in the trees, but that's looking down south through Fort Valley. The leaves are getting scarcer and scarcer as I get up here. I'm just under 2,000 feet now. I think that is Manica Peak right there. So we're going south, kind of again in the bowl of the west ridge. So I think we're going to go up this way around that ridge, and then Signal Knob I think is right back over in there somewhere. We won't see it until we come around this ridge. The character of this trail sure has changed. I'm up sort of nearing a plateau here, I think, because I can see blue daylight sort of horizontal to me. I think I'm as far up on this ridge as I'm going to get, except for maybe directly ahead. And things have gotten tight as it's gotten flat. A lot of mountain laurel and pine trees, and you know, all of the oaks are stubby. I imagine during the winter there's a lot of wind and ice across this ridge, but yeah, it's just neat how it goes from, you know, wide open rock slides picking your way across the face of a pretty significant slope to something like this so quickly. Yeah, I'm seeing blue daylight straight ahead in front of me too. So I think there's a turn coming up, probably over towards Manica Peak here very soon. I didn't fully appreciate the lay of the land here. I have just passed the intersection to Manica Peak Trail, and that peak is sort of off in front of me here. What I didn't expect is that Signal Knob is actually right there. It's across this gulf. And I can see the radio towers on top of it. It's actually below me a little bit at this point, so I need to go around to this ridge in front and then sort of hang a right back out to it. So I'm close as the crow flies, but I still got a bit of walking to get over there. So there's Signal Knob out there with the radio antenna on it. All right, I've arrived at Signal Knob. Public television. It is not called Signal Knob because of the towers up here, but because during the Civil War, it was used as a observation outpost and a communications signaling station for both the Confederates and the Union at different times, obviously, throughout the Civil War, and keeping track of movements through the Shenandoah Valley, which is right out there. So from here, my trail follows the access road for the signal tower down the mountain a bit. One wonders, in the 1860s, what route soldiers would have taken to get up here. and whether or not they had to actively fight for this position, or whether they just gave it up when the situation in the valley became untenable. I can imagine small group guerrilla raids, but this is not exactly easy to get to. These hills are steep, even though they're not very tall. This is the town of Strasburg straight out, and then Winchester is right up in there a little bit. That's the Shenandoah Valley, looking out into West Virginia. It's beautiful. So, like I said, the trail now follows the access road for the communications tower. And on the one hand, it's nice not to be picking through large rocks anymore. On the other, this is the steepest section of trail I've had. So it's actually a little hard on the knees going down here. So the Tuscarora should be a little less than a mile from here, and then from there I'll cut back east, back over the ridge that I just climbed up. So it crosses south of Manica Peak somewhere. I think that's going to be a short but steep haul up out of this valley, up over that, and then back over to Elizabeth Furnace area where I started. So I am about 4.5 in so far. According to the signs, it's 5, but I don't think I've really gone that far based on my GPS. So I think there's a lot of creative rounding going on. Don't mind the width of the trail. This has become a nice stroll through the woods. Alright, so I found the Tuscarora. As expected, it's going to be steeper, and it climbs up that ridge right behind me there. It's a little panicky because this was one of the main things I wanted to recon today, is make sure that there was a backcountry site out here big enough for the group that I'm likely to get, that we can still be both wildernessy and leave no tracey at the same time with, you know, a larger group, because it's an intro trip for a lot of boys, and I couldn't find it. It looked like it was completely overgrown from the last time I was here, which has been some years now. But I had to find a spot, right? This is the right distance. I don't want to push the boys any harder than this, particularly with this climb right here. This is a good first day. So I looked around. I've probably walked an extra mile back and forth. I finally did find it. I was going to go back down to the road and see what I could find, you know, along there as a backup, but suddenly something clicked and it looked right, and I found it. It's about 100 yards off trail, but the topography is perfect, and you get back up in there and it's clear enough that we can spread out and have a good fire ring and all that. So I am much relieved now. I was a little panicky that I'd come all this way and put a lot of stock in this is the trip, only to find that there was no campsite. So that's why we recon, right? That's why I chose to do this. So anyway, it's gonna work. So I gotta hike the rest of the way out of here. Let's make sure that that's gonna be survivable, and yeah, it's gonna be a good trip if the weather holds, which hopefully it will. So I went up about 1,600 feet in 3.5 miles. Just pretty gradual. It's gentle. Other than the rockiness, that'll be okay. Then I came almost straight down 600 feet in less than half a mile. Well, about a half a mile. So I'm glad we don't have to go up that. But I did give up a lot of elevation pretty quick. And now I got to go back up to the top of that same ridge. And the good news is where I'm crossing it is about 200 feet lower than its Signal Knob, so I've only got about 400 feet to go back up. But it appears to be substantially steeper than when I came up the other side. So if I do this with the kids, this will be first thing in the morning, hopefully after fueling up and with a good night's sleep. So
they'll probably run right up it. It's the old fogies like me that'll have the problem. All right, over the top. I'm feeling instantly better. I just crossed the other side of the Manika Peak Trail, which might be a good shortcut along this ridge if things go really, really bad. When I do this with the boys, I'm sure they can go the distance, but always good to have a backup. All right, so that's that east ridge that was washed out this morning. Right over in there is where we climbed up this morning. So we're now sort of cutting the U back across. So right down in there is where the car is, through those golden leaves. Man, it's a pretty day. I sure hope it's this nice when we do this next week. The leaves are still thin, but I'm back into somewhat of a golden zone here. All right, this is just beautiful. Most of the rocks are gone. The leaves are back. The color is awesome. There's a breeze picking up, and I'm not climbing that hill anymore. It's I'm feeling really nice. All right, I'm still on the Tuscarora, but I'm about to intersect with the Massanutten Trail and close the loop back where I started. I'm estimating this will be about a 10 3/4 mile loop. It's hard to estimate because I ran around looking for that campsite with my GPS on. That probably added a 3/4 right there. And I'm gonna say about 2,100 feet cumulative climb. It'll probably come out to a little more than that, but the big climbs, that's what it added up to be. And like I say, most of that was very shallow grade. 1,600 feet in 3.5 miles was almost not a climb at all. And the 4 miles since I left where the camp area would be, you know, there's that initial 400-foot climb, which is kind of a killer. But after that, the going's been really quick. Not as rocky, gradual downhill the whole way. So yeah, it's an easy back out, and so it checks a couple of boxes. More than 1,000 feet climb. We're going to be out here 2 nights. More than 10 miles. So all of those are good milestones for the guys working on various merit badges and trying to accomplish certain things. So if the weather, I'm hoping the weather will be as good when we do this with them as it was for me today, because this is a gorgeous place. And so yeah, if you find your way out here in western Virginia, Massanutten Range, Massanutten Ridge, I should say. It's just one big long mountain. Yeah, check out the Signal Knob. It's a really good loop up here. Beautiful area. Get out there.